And for reaction on all of this, we're going to bring in our State House insiders, Dave Wilson, our Republican strategist, Antoine Seawright, our Democratic strategist. Dave, we're going to begin with you. Your reaction to the ruling today.
This is a very confused and nuanced ruling that really has a lot of impact on what goes on. For some folks on the conservative side, it's the defund Planned Parenthood, which they're thrilled about. But the other side of this is the fact that there are some significant parts of this that are going to end up hampering some things when it comes to healthcare, especially for certain areas of our state. And that has got to be a question that lawmakers start looking at when it comes to healthcare and Medicaid in South Carolina. And that's going to be a big issue in the next couple of years.
You know, it's all good until it's not. And these cute political fights that some want to pick and try to paint a certain picture about certain groups of people and who and what they're receiving in terms of care, it's all good until it's not. The fact of the matter is there are a number of people who depend on places like Planned Parenthood for their health because of the economic reasons. And in many parts of our state, community health centers are the only place where people can get the care they needed. And I think it's important to note that you cannot use federal dollars or state dollars for an abortion anyway. So this whole idea of defunding Planned Parenthood to make a political statement, I think is a false narrative. The fact of the matter is there will be many South Carolinians who will not have access to care because of the court decision.
And I think the other part about it, JR, is if it was not Planned Parenthood who was the named party in this, I don't know if it would necessarily have come down the way that it did from the high court.
I want to move on now to our state Supreme Court. Antoine, they have to make a decision where the latest congressional maps drawn in a way to dilute Democratic voting in South Carolina. What are you hearing?
Well, I think the only thing people want is oceans of justice and rivers of fairness. The fact of the matter is South Carolina maps are bleached. And there's such a way they're written so partisan that we have one member of the Democratic congressional delegation. If Republicans in South Carolina felt very good about their message and their messengers, they would have free and fair maps that allow people to participate freely in the process and, quite frankly, not have gerrymandering be an issue in South Carolina. But we know that will not be the case. And we know that many of these races are often settled in the primary because of the way the maps are drawn in the state. And it's very unfortunate when you consider the fact that how South Carolina has not moved forward along with the rest of the country because of things like the map and who's in control of our state.
Well, that's part of the reason why we talking about elections matter. These maps were drawn by the folks who you elected, folks at home. You elected these folks back in 2020. It's now 2025, and we're talking about this issue because that's when the census happens and that's when the maps get redrawn. So every election matters, and being involved in the process and knowing what's going on is going to be an essential part of doing that.
But Dave, I think it's important for folks to know at home that Republicans draw these maps. And you all have been in charge of our state for 2 decades now, in charge of the House and Senate, every constitutional officer. And so I don't understand if things are going so well and you believe in what you're selling to the people of South Carolina, then surely free and fair maps should not be the case. I know that's not necessarily you, like everyone in the party, but I'm talking about those who tend to have their hand on the switch in terms of determining.
And that does have an impact on the way that certain seats are drawn, certain lines are drawn. But keep in mind, one of the most strangest districts in South Carolina is the one of Jim Clyburn, which goes from the northern part of Columbia all the way through Orangeburg to the peninsula of Charleston. And the other ones that have been recently drawn are much more along county and area lines across the state. So that is a reason why, because it is a predominantly African-American region of the state, and you have a very strong presence of Jim Clyburn in Congress because we have a seat that's drawn that is specifically for a Democratic seat in the state of South Carolina.
Yeah, but I think we can do better than having a seat packed with Black people. I think we can have a free and fair seat to allow South Carolinians to participate in all 7 of our congressional districts. If you look at Joe Wilson's district, you mentioned Clyburn's district. I don't think Joe Wilson's district is any fairer. It may be more bleached and have more white conservatives in it, but I don't think it's any more fair if you're nagging at a narrative of fair.
No, we're nagging at county lines and which areas are kind of geographically together. And that's the way our new maps look a lot more than they ever have.
Sure, and South Carolina, nobody retires and moves up north, and so a lot of people are moving to South Carolina. So we may get another congressional seat during the next census. But here's what I do know: Republicans have an opportunity to have free and fair maps, and I think that's where the court should land.
All right, Antoine Seawright, Dave Wilson, guys, as always, Thank you so much for your time. We're going